All right, I'm here today with my dear friend for some years now, the sheriff of Wayne County, and the great state of Michigan. Wayne County is a tremendous, large county that comprises close to 2 million people in the entire county. And I'm talking with the sheriff tonight, the actual sheriff of the entire county, my friend, my dear friend, my brother, Sheriff Benny Napoleon. Welcome, Sheriff. Welcome.
Hey, it's always a pleasure, Doc. How are you?
I'm doing great tonight, and man, I'm excited about this conversation because this is one of those conversations that I believe will enlighten people. I'm always wary about news commentators and media that gives their opinion about things that they haven't done. You know what I'm saying? And so when they start talking about policing, but they've never policed before, to me, it's a weak argument because, you know, it's secondhand. They don't know what they're talking about. And at best, all they can know is what they hear. And so I wanted to go right to the source today to get some information because you know what's going on in society. We are living in a very interesting time that I believe many things had to happen. I think that there are some things that had to evolve, that had to come about. You know, the whole situation with race in America has been one that has been escaped for a long, long time. Many of my white friends ask me, Dr. Lewis, you know, why is it that, you know, this race thing just suddenly arose? And I'm looking at them and I'm
where
saying,
have they been?
Exactly. This has not suddenly arose. This has been around for a long, long time. I call it a cancer that's been in remission. And so at some point it was going to happen. But added to all of this has been, you know, this whole deal with police reform, which of course I know that you agree with police reform, but there's another topic that I kind of want to get into, and that's the whole concept of defunding the police departments, because right now people are talking all over the country about defunding the police department. I'm a straight shooter, as you know, that I have as I've been, I just tell it like it is, right? And so some people don't appreciate that, and then other people, you know, do. You either like me or you hate me. But my particular position is that I don't believe that the police force need to be defunded. But when I say that, I break ranks with Black people, and I know I'm Black. I know that you Black. You understand what I'm saying? We not at all in disagreement about that. I need to hear from you about this whole concept. I want to have a discussion about this. What do you think about defunding the police?
So first and foremost, as you are aware, Doc, I'm a lawyer, in addition to being a police officer. Policing is a local function. Police officers and police agencies should police communities in a manner that is acceptable to the people in the community within their jurisdiction, as long as it's in compliance with the law. Now, that being said, I believe that people have the absolute right to defund their police department if that's what they choose to do. Now, I've been doing this a long time, and I grew up in the city.
How long have you been doing this? Tell the people how long you've been doing this. Because some folks, because you look good, man, they might think you've been on the beat for about 10 years, man.
No, I've been doing this going on 46 years.
Wow.
I've been doing this a long time. And for your viewers, I was the former chief of the Detroit Police Department. Started out in that agency as a trainee police officer back in 1975. So I started out at the bottom of the agency, worked every position and rank in the agency, and retired as the chief in 2001. And I've been the sheriff here in Wayne County now, which is the 17th or 18th largest county in the country.
Wow.
For the last, since 2009. Now, that being said, being a Detroiter, growing up in a very tough town in one of the toughest parts of the city of Detroit, I have seen in my 45 years, people who are murderers and rapists and child molesters, drug dealers, carjackers, B&E men, robbers, spouse abusers, anything that you can imagine. I've dealt with those folks.
Wow.
And I have never seen, I've seen those kind of people who are not afraid of the police. They didn't care if you were a police officer. They'd like, bring it. I have never seen any of them who were afraid of their neighbors. So if people decide that they want to defund their police department, they absolutely have the right to do so. However, that's not a community that I want to live in if they decide to do that.
So tell us some of the consequences of defunding the police, because right, like I said again, right, you know, we might both be outliers on this particular topic, because I agree with you. I don't want.
Yeah, I'm not an outlier, right, because I think they have the right to do it.
No, I think they got the right to do it too. I think they got the right to do it, but I just don't feel like it's the best idea.
I don't think it's the best idea, but I think if they can gather up enough support to say, we don't want the police, we're going to police our own community, and then they want vigilante justice in their community, and they don't want the official law. I just don't know how it would work, because I'm telling you, that's not a city I want to live in.
So I heard a dude in California, he's a politician. He said to me, he said, you know, forget the police. He said, we gonna police our own neighborhoods. We got the ability to do it, and we gonna bring it on, because we don't need them no more. So how do I respond to that?
I would ask him, he's in California, yep. Who do he thinks is going to deal with the Crips and the Bloods and the other gangbangers, the Mexican Mafia, MS-13 and folks like that? If the citizens are prepared to go deal with folks like that, then, you know, God bless them. If they really believe that they can do that, and they can convince the majority of the citizens in their community that that's what they're going to do. And I'd really like to see them go after MS-13, go after the Crips and the Bloods, and go after the Mexican Mafia. Please, if you think you're willing to go do that, then God bless you.
But let me ask you this now, because see, here's the deal. You got me a little nervous now, even more nervous, because I don't know that people actually understand what it is that you all do. You get what I'm saying? And so, and particularly in a large city like Detroit, you know, I'm in the city of Hartford. We have definitely major issues in Hartford, particularly for being such a small city. But at the same time, Detroit's about 8 times larger than Hartford, particularly with its metroplexes. The dynamics of a bigger city takes in a whole lot of different components. You got to help me to see it, and certainly the viewers to understand what that means, because right now people are gung-ho about, man, just defund the police. This guy allegedly killed an unarmed Black man. It's caused international. Now, I don't know if you realize that it's caused international.
Oh, absolutely.
My cousins in Jamaica was telling me about protests and marches in Jamaica, West Indies, in South Africa, in Germany, all over the world. And so there again, like I said, racism is a subject that people have not been mature enough to talk about. They freak out about it. It's not that big of a deal if you just sit down and talk about it, but they've not talked about it. Now we have this widespread unrest, and now we come to this point where they're talking about defunding the police as if that's the solution. Is defunding the police the cure-all for stopping police brutality? Are those interconnected?
I don't think so. I mean, there are other ways that, and hopefully we'll have the chance to talk about some of my thoughts on what needs to happen to reform criminal justice. But so let me just talk about my experience.
Okay.
It's 2:00 in the morning. A person shoots 2 or 3 members of his family and is barricaded in a house.
Now this is fiction, right? This is fiction.
No, this ain't fiction. This is things that have happened. I'm not talking fiction. I'm talking. I'm reciting things from my career.
Okay, I swear I thought you was talking fiction. This now I ain't even go. That sound like a fiction story.
No, this is not fiction. This
is real talk. Real talk.
This is real talk.
Okay, got
it. And it's 2:00 in the morning, and the guy is firing his weapon, and the neighbors are upset. Who do you think gonna go get him? Mr. Jones, Mr. Williams, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Douglas. They're going to go knock on the door and say, hey, man, come out of there with that gun. We're here to arrest you. We have a serial rapist who's going throughout the community assaulting people. and you're going to go put together a surveillance team and people to respond to find and try to catch this person. You have a person who is robbing banks or robbing stores or breaking into business establishments, whatever. You're going to get Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Douglas to go after those folks. If that's what you think is going to happen and you believe that and you trusted that, you have an absolute right in the community to do that if that's what you want to do. You have people who are breaking into houses and you got a pattern of break-ins. Are you going to get that same group of people, you know, Miss Jones and Miss Williams and Miss Ida, and they going to go after the folks that are doing these break-ins? If you believe that you can police your community that way, you have an absolute right to do it. But I would suggest to you that that's not going to happen. So if you defund the police and you really believe you can do that, drug dealers, you're going to go after people who are out making mega millions of dollars, and you're going to tell them to just stop, rolling dope on the corners of your community. And I've dealt with, Young Boys Incorporated, Pony Down, the Chambers Brothers, all those folks who came out of Detroit. We had to go after them and put them away. And what about gangbangers? We've had all kinds of gang activity in the city of Detroit, and I used to command the gang unit in the city of Detroit. I spent 13 years of my 26 years in the gang unit, either as a police officer, sergeant, or as the commanding officer in charge of it. And we went after some very bad people who were terrorizing this community. So if anyone out there believes that defunding the police and that people in your community are willing to go after these folks, then I suggest that you go do it. But that's not a community I want to live in.
Wow. So let me ask you this. So I'm sure that you remember a few weeks ago, the gentleman, Caucasian gentleman who took it on his own hands to police his community in Georgia, and he killed a young black man that was actually running away from him, trying to, get out of this whole concept of a citizen's arrest. How did that go bad? That's community policing as far as they're concerned. So,
well, I would ask your friend in California, if he leaves his city and goes to different parts of California, does he really want to subject himself to the citizens in that community? And he might decide that he'd rather take his chances with the people who, again, Miss Jones, Mr. Williams, Mr. whoever that are citizens, and he might decide he wants to ride to that community and let them pull him over and question him, and if he's speeding or if he runs a red light. How do you do that? I mean, and so I don't think people who are talking about defunding the police really understand what we do, why we do it, and what restrictions are placed on us that may not be placed on private citizens.
So let me ask you this. We know and understand that the media has, for one, it's pervasive, but it's also potentially toxic. And so, I mean, I've heard in the past couple of weeks, the actual news commentators favorably reporting, because when you and I grew up, we had, and I'm dating myself, but we had cats like Walter.
You're a young man.
I'm a young man. I know, exactly. I know, but we all know Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather, right? And the one thing I respect about these cats is that they at least had some, not some, but a lot of integrity when it came to journalism. Today, a lot of journalists, they don't even try to find the story, research the story. They get all of their information on Instagram and Facebook, Snapchat. And so that's their research right there. That's their bibliographical references. And so when I heard this guy, on a major New York station, and he was talking authoritatively. So the average listener is like, this dude who's a news commentator and he's famous, he's a household name, is saying we need to defund the police. That's going to correct the problem. How do we deal with that? And now we're not just
does he want to defund the police in his neighborhood? That's the question I would ask.
That's a real good. Well, this guy don't
defund the police where he lives.
He don't listen. He don't live in Harlem, New York. He don't live in Bronx.
And guess what? If he defunds his police department, folks that might be a little careful about deciding to go victimize folks where he lives might decide, ain't got no police over there. Let me go visit Mr. whatever his name is. And I don't know the reporter. Look, again, if people want to do that, they absolutely have the right to do it. If the people in the community decide that they want to defund their police departments, it's a budget issue. I just write them out, lay them all off, and don't put any money in the police budget. But the consequences of that action are far greater than most people could imagine, because it's kind of like when they talk about letting the teachers have guns. I don't want my child to go in school where every teacher is packing, because they aren't trained to respond to, you don't know what they're going to do. We've seen police officers who were trained who have run from gunfire, right, and were cowards. We saw that down in Florida. Wow. So if someone comes into a building where my grandson is, I'm not expecting his teacher, Miss Jones, to pull out the gun and go chase this guy with a gun. Really, do you think that's going to happen? No, it's not going to happen.
So is it, let me ask you a question, because this really brings me to another thought. So because certain people, and you've taught me well, and I understand policing through our conversations better than I ever would if I was talking to somebody that was on CNN. You understand what I'm saying? But do you think that because we see instances of bad policing, and unfortunately far too many than should be, I'm not shy about it, I'm not sugarcoating it, what's happened is horrific, but it's not the first. We both know that. It's happened a bunch of times and it should not happen. But do people then see that and then become completely emotionalized to the point that they can't make rational decisions about law and order?
I think that it's obviously it's a very emotional thing. It's even emotional for folks like me. I mean, I grew up in Detroit at a time when you did not have a lot of African Americans in policing. That's how I got into policing. Mayor Young was elected in 1973, took office in 1974.
Mayor Coleman Young.
Mayor Coleman Young.
Oh, wow.
He wanted to integrate a department that that did not represent that community that it was policing. I was dragged into a recruiting van as a young man, 18 years old, on my lunch break downtown. And a police officer said, "Hey, how old are you?" I told him, and he said, "Come on in here. You're going to join the police department." I was like, "Well, baby, where I came from, I don't even know any police. And the police that I did know didn't look like me." I was like, "No, dude, you're talking to the wrong guy." But after I talked to him, and he started explaining to me what was going on, and he started talking about my experiences with the police in the city of Detroit, and said, the only way you're going to change that is to get into the agency and become a part of the solution and be a part of changing and revolutionizing policing in your community, and the rest is history. So I think that those are the kinds of things that make sense. Don't defund the police, get the police more oriented to the community, and that's the way we should do. There are a lot of things that I think need to happen when it comes to that. First and foremost, I think citizens should be involved in the hiring process. Whenever we hire folks in Detroit, you have to go to what is called a home interview, and then you have to do an oral interview. At the oral interview, historically, it's an interview with police officers. But I think they should have an interview with people from the community to see if they believe that you're the kind of person that they want policing their community. Wow. Why can't we do something like that so that the citizens have involvement in deciding and in the hiring process? When it comes to the termination, when you terminate a police officer, the way it generally goes is the chief or somebody representing the chief decides to fire a person. Right now in Michigan, if that person is fired, they appeal it to an arbitrator, and the arbitrator makes that decision. Chances are that arbitrator doesn't live in Detroit, doesn't really visit Detroit that often, but that person makes a decision. Why can't the appeal process go to a citizens review panel where the citizens decide whether what you've done is severe enough for you to be fired? After the chief of the agency has made that determination, if you want to appeal it to the people that you're policing to see if they think that your actions were appropriate. That's how you get involved in changing the culture of the police, so they know now that they are truly responsible to the citizens. From hiring to firing, they have to sit before a panel of citizens.
Does that model exist anywhere?
No, not to my knowledge. But
Gotcha.
those are things that, you know, you and I have talked over the years, Doc. I believe that there are a lot of things that could happen to change the trajectory of policing in a community. You know that I'm big on residency. If a police officer wants to police a community, they should be willing to live in that community. They
Wow.
should be willing to be a neighbor. They should be able to be willing to shop in that community like I do. I live in my community. I go to church in my community. I shop in my community.
Wow.
My daughter went to school in this community. People who live in my neighborhood, if they have minor issues, not 911 issues, you know what they do? They drop a note in the sheriff's mailbox. They drop a note in the former police chief's mailbox. Hey, chief, we got an abandoned car, or there's a house over here that we think is doing something that you might want to look at, or you know, why can't we get this car towed, or all the little like neighborhood nuisance kind of stuff. Because police officers live in the community, they're going to be more concerned about what goes on in that community. Citizens should absolutely have the right to demand that. If they don't care about it, then that's fine. They don't demand it. But if they want to have police officers who are from their community and are concerned about their community, they should be able to demand that you live in the community. Another thing that we need to talk about when it comes to policing, they have in some communities, they are giving bonuses to police officers. If they recommend someone to the agency and that person gets through the background investigation, the police officers will get a bonus. If they get through the police academy, they get another bonus. If they get through their probationary period, they then get another cash bonus. Why can't we do that to the citizens? Let them help recruit people into their police department and give them that same bonus that people are giving to police officers who are recommending people come into the agency. Make the citizens more a part of the process of hiring and firing the people that are policing in their community, and they should be able to demand that you live in that community if you want to police that community.
Wow, that's very interesting, very, very interesting. And it's well said as well. Recently, and I may have mentioned this to you, we had a police last year who, a Caucasian police, lives in Glastonbury, Connecticut. Which is it's a very opulent community. Probably one of the most opulent communities east of the Connecticut River, and works in Hartford. You know, was in Hartford, I believe it was on Garden Street, saw 5 young black men standing outside an abandoned building, literally just talking. They was just talking and just shooting the breeze. He comes up on them, pulls out his gun, begins to harass them, and told all of them that I am trigger happy today. He began to let them know what he can do to them and get away with it. He didn't realize that millennials are experts at using the cameras. This dude had a camera behind his neck. He didn't move because he didn't want to get shot, didn't want to die. And like 20, 30 minutes, the entire thing was recorded. And so basically he threatened these kids' lives for absolutely no reason. He got fired. But last week in the Hartford Current, I saw that he was begging for his job back. Now, for me, I'm not shy about what I believe. I'm a spiritual leader, as well as an educator in the community. Your father was a spiritual leader. My dad was a spiritual leader. There comes another dynamic into play. This is crazy. And so I'm trying to figure out, how do you even address stuff like that? Because to me, that makes it bad for everybody. The fact that it's even on the table for him to come back after 5 lives could have been dead. And after they were dead, there would have been no accountability. Most white people in America would have agreed that he needed to, the 5 needed to be dead, even if they had, a speeding ticket, marijuana possession, or even if they've never done nothing. How do we deal with that? Because I'm outraged. If I were the mayor, I would have shut that down altogether and just says he can't work here again.
Well, not just there. I mean, if that's all captured on video and it's totally impartial, it's objective.
It was already reviewed. It was already. They went through a review process. This dude, he got fired. He got fired.
Why would? Okay, so if you get back to my original proposal, If he was trying to be hired, let him go before a panel of citizens and let them see why he was terminated and let them decide if they want him back in their community. I'm confident that they would say no, and they should be able to say no. But that's why I'm a strong proponent of get the community involved in the recruiting, the hiring, the retention, and the termination process. And then they will have more control over the people who come into their community and police. And you'll see a lot of change in people's attitudes and in their actions if they truly know that they're going to be responsible to the citizens that they're serving. Make them live there so that they have next door neighbors that they have to look at every single day and say, hey, I'm the police in your community. I got to go to the store. My kids go to the school. I go worship in this area. Make them a part of the community and not apart from the community.